Hey guys, Chris Dick here. Today I'm going to be working on adding some project management features into SharePoint, in particular one using an app called Tasks. So in order to do this, we're going to go to, right now I'm in this tutorial site here. You can feel free to jump to that site and it shows you all the steps to doing this. However, let's go into our SharePoint site. Now, this one here is already configured with a few features that I've been working on, but it won't reflect on anything that I'm doing right now. So if I go to the site contents link, what I'm going to see is all of the contents of the site. In particular, I have a few apps installed. I have our document library apps, the list apps, um, task list, contact list, and page library so far. Okay. Now, I'm in particular going to be using this task list, and I'm not going to show you this one here because this one won't be on your site, but I am going to start fresh from a brand new one here. So if you click on the new drop down, you're going to see something that looks fairly similar to this. We are going to select app. Okay. And you will probably see something very similar to this. This is the app that we're looking for. It's called Tasks. But if you don't see it, just type Tasks and you're going to see it come up with a box like that. Now, when I click on that, it comes up asking me to add tasks. I'm going to be adding the app. And if I go back to my tutorial here, this is the step we're at right now, at step 4. Um, so we're going to enter the name of this task list. Now my task list is called MRP High Level Task List. You may have something else, but if you're in my class, this is in particular the name that we want to use. So we enter that in, we just paste it or type it in if you like. Click on create, and that's going to create our task list. Okay. Now, when we go to that task list, we're going to see something very simple like this. Okay. So far looks fairly good. There's a few things that I want to modify on this task list so that it shows some more features, and as we develop our task list you're going to see why these features are more important. You'll see these tabs, we'll be referring to them quite frequently, so get used to going to these tabs. This tab is called the list tab. Okay. And on the list tab, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to modify our view here so that it displays a column that I kind of like having around. It's called the start date. Okay, so we go down and select start date. It's just right around the middle of the page. And I'm going to put it above the due date. You'll notice that due date is at position 3 and start date is way down here. So I'm going to make that position 3. And you'll notice that what it does is it bumps up the numbers. So now due date is position 4 and assigned to is position 5. So far, that's all we have to do with this view. So now you'll notice that we have start date and due date. You'll probably want to get used to using that modify view because it does help in making a few changes that we want to do. Now, the list tab has quite a few features here. In particular, I will be showing how to work with Microsoft Project. You will probably get another video on connecting to Outlook. It's very handy to do that if you want to be able to track what you're doing task-wise in your calendar so that it's synchronized. This is really, really helpful to do. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to work on the list settings. Okay, so we're going to go in here and I'm going to explain a few things. The list name, description, and navigation. This is a handy little feature here if you want to change the name of your task list. In particular, if you're working with my class, make sure the name is exactly this. I use a few features that will help me pull data from these lists in order to give grades. So when we look at a few other features here, what we have is our navigation. We can add this to the quick launch bar, okay, and just click on save. So what you're going to do is you're going to see it just down here, and that is now available in the quick launch bar. Okay, these are really helpful to have because if you've got them available to at this quick launch, it's a little easier to manage. You can edit that link, and you can move it up and down. I kind of like to have it up near the top so that it's a little bit more prominent. Okay, and we'll save that. All right, good. Okay, now some of the features that this tutorial suggests here. All right, we've made a couple of changes, and in particular, what we're going to do now is it says go to the bottom of the page and find the list of the current columns in the task list, and we're going to click on create column. So what it's asking us to do is we're going to create a new column, and this column, it leads us into this. It says create a column named budgeted hours. Okay, now budgeted hours will be used to track how much time was spent on a task, but in particular, when we build another app called a timesheet, what that timesheet is going to do is we're going to link it to this task list, and we're going to say we're going to start applying hours towards the things that we've got in this list. So it'll be very important to set this up correctly. So let's go over to the list settings, and as it says there, go all the way down to the bottom. And you'll see it says create column. You'll want to get used to doing this for a couple minutes. So I just pasted in the name because I went over here and I just copied that bold text. And the budgeted hours says it's a number type, okay? Uses the number data type, a minimum of zero point 0.5 and a maximum of 20. Now the reason here is a minimum of zero point 0.5 is generally in our projects we're not going to be doing many things that are less than a half an hour. So this is a time span of about an hour regular, but I'll allow up to half an hour. Okay. Now number of decimal places. I think we can be safe to say we'll have 2 decimal places. In other words, I might maybe work for an hour and a quarter. That might be possible. We're not going to supply a default in this case. I think it says a default of 1, but let's not do that. We're going to avoid doing that. And the reason is because not all tasks require a budgeted hours towards it. Some of them do, but really the majority of them don't need it in this case at this point. And the reason is we have things like summary tasks, which are really more of a collection of things that are going on rather than the thing itself. And I'll explain that in a later lesson. Okay, so I think we're pretty good here. We're going to click on OK. And what you're going to see now is if I go to the task list again, now you are going to see budgeted hours. Okay, so going to the next phase here, we're going to create 2 calculated columns. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail explaining the formula, but just knowing that you can paste a formula, you can write up a formula in these calculated columns, and you can do lots of really great things with them. So, in this case, what we're going to be doing is calculating whether the due date of a project, what's the start of the week of the due date of a project. In other words, if the project, if the task is supposed to be due on a Tuesday, the start date of that week would be a Sunday, right? And whatever the date of that is what is going to show up here. Okay, so starting off with that, we're going to go back over to our list settings. Okay. And likewise, our next column is going to be end of week, so it will go the opposite direction and find out what's the last day of the week for that task. Okay. So we put the name in there, and then we go down here to calculated column. We've got a formula, so we can copy that formula, go back over here, paste it. Okay, and then it says, let's see, the data type is date and time. So we keep going down here and we go to date and time. And in this case, all I want is the date format of date only. Okay, I don't need the time or anything like that. So it says date and time format is date only. All right, good. And that's it for that. So we're going to do the same thing for the end of week calculation. Okay, and there we go. End of week. Okay, calculated column. Okay, we'll copy that formula. We can paste it in here. We'll go to, it's going to be a date and time format, a date and time data type as well, and a date only format. So let's click OK. Good. All right, let's go back over to our task list and see what we have here. So we now have our budgeted hours, start of week and end of week. Okay. Now, that is it for setting up this task list. Now there's a few views that we're also going to be using, and these views are going to help us have a view on what happened last week, all right, and what's happening this week and what's happening next week. These are really important things to recognize in a project because sometimes we need to refer back to what actually was supposed to be due last week, right? And some things may have completed last week, so this is also really important to recognize. We want to be aware of what happened last week. We want to know what's happening this week. This is obviously very important because it's like what's actually going on this week that we should be have a heads up on. Okay, and then we have our next week. Now, the next week is like a almost like a 2-week outlook to know what's going to be coming up, because I might be doing a status report meeting in the middle of the week, and I'm saying, here's what's happening this week, and I've already lost a few days, but next week I've got a full view of what's happening. Okay, so these are really key views. All right, so we're going to go back into our list settings again. Okay, and this time we're going to be creating a view. Okay, now read this carefully. It says create this view based on the upcoming view. Okay, so we have an upcoming view. All right, and what we're going to do is click on create view. Okay, and it gives us a few different types of views to do. We're going to start with one that's already available to us, and that is the upcoming view. Okay, now the upcoming view gives us a view of everything that's coming up. So this is all future things. All right, it doesn't say anything about past. It just says all the stuff that's coming up, and this is kind of an important thing to recognize because that's good, but sometimes it's just too much information. We don't need all that. Okay, so let's look at tasks this week. Okay, I'm going to paste that name in there. Now you'll notice that we've lost our new columns here in this list, so I'm going to add those new columns so that we have the information available to us. So I want the start date. Okay, and remember I put that above due date, so I'm going to put that as number 3. Okay, so we stay consistent. All right. We added our budgeted hours column. Okay. Now we don't really need the start of week and end of week, but you never know. You might need it. I'm going to add them just for the sake of having them there, so that we can have a little more information to go by, and we can see how they are reflective. Okay. Now you can choose to remove them any time, but you don't have to. You can keep them in or keep them out. It's up to you. Now, one key important thing here is about our filter. Okay, what we have is we already have a few filters that are percent complete. okay, is equal to nothing. Okay, that means anything that's percent that's equal to nothing, well, it just hasn't got a value there. Okay, and anything that is not equal to 100, in other words, it's not complete. So if I've got tasks coming up this week and they're already complete, well, I don't really need to know that. Okay, you may even want to create a completed tasks for this week view. That may be helpful. Okay, we're going to modify this one here in particular. Okay, and what it says to do. Okay, we have our task not equal to 100. Okay, we have start of week is less than or equal to today. Okay, that's what we're going to be looking at. Okay, so we change this column to start of week is less than or equal to today. Okay, so you just copy this today. It's already there, but we'll just do it for the sake of it. Less than or equal to today. I just pasted that back in. Okay, all right. And end of week is greater than or equal to today. Okay, so we want one more filter criteria. And notice here, it says up here, when we're talking about our percent complete, it says it's either blank or less than 100. Anything in between is good. What we're doing here is we're saying it must be greater than the start of week or equal to it, or less than the end of the week. Okay, so we go over here. Sorry, is greater than the end of the week. Okay, greater than or equal to today. Greater than and equal to today. Let's just be sure here. Yeah, I think we're pretty good. Excellent. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our tasks this week. That's a really important point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start building off these views so that we have our last week. Okay, so now we can base everything off tasks this week, and we're going to make a few alterations to the filter. So let's go back over to our list settings. Okay, you're going to see I'm going to kind of start going a little faster through this. Okay, and now we see our task this week, so we're going to base the view off task this week. Okay, so we're going to call this tasks last week. All right, we have all of our columns already set up because that's what we did last time. Okay, and we're going to scroll all the way down here. We've still got all those features that we had last time. All right, so now we're going to change the filter to start of the week is less than or equal to today -6, in other words, a few days back. Okay, 1 week is about 7 days. Okay, and that is including today. Okay, start of the week, let's just is less than or equal to today -6. Okay, go back over here, greater than. All we have to do actually is change it to today -6. So that's the only difference there, really. So that's great. All right, we'll go back up here, save that. Okay. Now, I'm going to do next week as our view. Okay, I'm going to go a little fast through this again. Go to list settings, all the way down to the bottom, create view, and we're going to base it on this week again. Okay, you can do it the same as you did with the other one where you did last week, but it actually says to base it on last week, and that's just because it's got the similar calculations, but it's okay, not much changed here. Okay, scroll all the way down. Okay, and this one was +6, the other one was -6, if you recall. Oops. plus 6. Okay, excellent. Very good. Okay. Now, all these lists now show up here. Okay. Task this week, task last week. Huh. Task this week, last week. Funny. I don't know what I did wrong there. Test. Oh, there it is. There it is. Task next week. Okay. Good. Good. We've got that. All right. So now it's asking us to create a couple other lists here. Now these are personal lists here. These are a little bit more important because what they're going to be doing is there a view of the same stuff, but it's only things that are assigned to you. Okay, and this is important to know because this is we don't want to have overwhelming lists here that show only things that are related to other people, but maybe not you. And it's going to be important to know who's doing what. Okay, so it says to base it off tasks this week. Okay, and because we're going to be creating this one is going to be my tasks this week. All right. So all the formulas will be the same, but we're going to add in a bit more criteria. Okay, and it says where assigned to is equal to me. Okay, just double check that formula here. Assigned to is equal to me. Okay, excellent. And then we just push OK. All right, excellent. Okay, we'll go through down to this one. Tasks, my tasks last week. Okay, lots of little lists here, but these are going to be very helpful later on for you. Okay, so my tasks last week is based on tasks last week. Okay, paste that name in. Okay, where it's assigned to, in other words, is equal to me. Okay, and you have to put in those square brackets. It's square bracket me, close square bracket. Okay, we're adding our list. We're getting a bigger list here as we go. Okay, all right. My task next week. Very good. Okay, and again, all the way down to the bottom, create view, and we're going to base it on tasks next week. Paste that name in because we just copied it. Show, look for assigned to, add me, go back up to the top and save it. Okay, good. Now, what we're going to be looking at here is we're going to look at how we're using some of these views and how we're entering some of these tasks. Now this goes beyond the scope of this of this tutorial. So this is how we set this up. But I'm going to show you now how to use it. Okay, so if we have a new task, all right, we'll just call it task 1 for now. Okay. And it has a start date of, let's say, today, and a due date of, let's say, next week. Okay, sometime next week. All right, I'm going to assign that to me. Okay, we're going to show more, and this is how we'll get our extra little features here. We have budgeted hours. All right, so here we're going to say that we have a budgeted hours of 8. We're not going to be using that field right now, but just so we actually have some information available to us. Okay. Okay, so right now we're in my tasks next week. Okay. If I look at my tasks this week, okay, for whatever reason it's showing up, and maybe we'll have to look at that. Okay, I figured out what went wrong here. Now I noticed that when I flipped over to task this week, it was still showing. Okay. Now I know what I did. I put the and or in the wrong position. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into this list tab and I'm going to click on modify view. Now this is a fairly simple fix. we can just go all the way back down to the bottom, and we're going to modify our filter because I had or. So it kind of negated everything above it and made it say, if it's assigned to me, just throw it in there. So I don't want that. Okay. Now, notice that it disappears because that task that I put in was actually due next week. Okay, so if I do next week, I'm going to have to modify this view as well. Okay, same problem. We have to do that with all of our my views. Okay, and I'm going to look at last week as well. I think there's the same problem here too. That's an easy fix. We happen to do this from time to time and when we're doing our videos, but why stop, right? It's better to see when you have problems than never have problems at all. Okay, so tasks next week. Here is a task that is due next week. Okay, if I go back to all tasks, it's going to show me everything. So I'm going to create a task now that was started last week sometime and was due last week. I'm going to assign it to me again. Okay, and let's say this is a task last week, test last week. I'm going to call it task last week. And we'll just do budgeted hours are 4. Okay, good. All right. Now, let's test our list here. My tasks last week. Okay, there it is. It's showing up nice and neat. If I look at this week, it shouldn't be showing up. There it is. My tasks next week. There we are. Good. Okay, now let's test one for this week. Okay, task this week. Okay, I started it last week and it's due this week. All right. Okay, budgeted hours. Let's say this one is 12 hours. Or better yet, let's test out one of our max features. Let's say it's 25 hours. Let's see what happens. There we are. It says the field must be between 0.5 and 20. Good, good. We have a feature that's working here. Let's say the budgeted hours for this task was 15 hours. Okay. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't show up there. But task this week, there it is, all showing up. Okay. Let's add something else that is perhaps not assigned to someone. Okay. Tasks this week. Okay. And maybe this one started a little further back. Let's say it was back on August 18th. All right, and it's going to be due on Wednesday again. Budgeted hours for this might have been 18 hours. Seems like it's right because it's a little longer. Okay, good. Okay, so notice it doesn't show up here because it's not a task that is assigned to me, but as a team, I might want to know what's going on. Okay, I might want to say, hey, so someone was supposed to finish this task and it's not done. And look at this, it's not assigned to anybody. That's why it wasn't finished. Okay, so these would be pretty important. Now, if I do all tasks, I'm seeing all the things that are available. Okay, everything that's going on. Okay. Well, that concludes this video. I hope it was helpful for you. Make sure you implement this in your projects from now on. This is going to be a great little feature. We're going to be doing another video where we apply SDLC tasks. This is a software development lifecycle task. We're going to start using the timelines and some of the more advanced features of the task list. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great time.